Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something pretty fundamental, how we all understand and, well, respond to grief.
It's huge, isn't it? Something everyone encounters, but yeah, often feels completely unprepared for.
Totally. And what kicked this off for us was the introduction to this really powerful new book on the subject. The way the author opens it, it just nails why our typical approaches often, miss the mark.
Absolutely. And this isn't abstract for her. She's a psychotherapist, loads of experience, trauma, resilience.
Right, but then she faces just shattering personal loss. Her partner died suddenly, drowned. And it just completely upended everything she thought she knew about grief.
And what's really striking, she says all that professional background, all the training, it gave her almost nothing to hold on to when faced with that level of personal pain.
Yeah, it exposed this massive gap, didn't it, between the theories and the actual feeling of intense grief.
She put it so starkly. She said, none of what I knew applied to laws of that magnitude. With all my experience and training, if anyone could be prepared, it should have been me.
Yeah.
But nothing could have prepared me for that. None of what I'd learned mattered.
Ooh, that really lands. It just shows the sheer power of that kind of loss.
It really does. And, that experience pushed her to connect with other people going through similar things.
Yeah.
Young widows, parents who'd lost kids.
Right.
And this common theme just kept coming up, this feeling of being, well, judged, misunderstood, even kind of shamed for how they were grieving.
Can you imagine? You're in absolute agony, and then you hear things like, I don't know.
Well, the book gives some pretty awful examples. People literally being told to get over it or time to put the past behind you.
Seriously.
Yeah. Or even told to stop talking about the person they lost,
Yeah.
to move on.
Yeah.
And incredibly, sometimes hearing things like these deaths were somehow necessary for them to learn something important.
Wow. That's actually shocking. And it makes you think, even the things people say trying to be helpful, the standard platitudes.
Exactly. They often just feel dismissive, don't they? Like they're minimizing its enormous pain, making it sound like something you could just, fix easily.
So what happens then? What's the effect of hearing those kinds of things?
What the author found, and this clearly struck a chord with lots of people, is that they just stopped talking about it, at least with people who hadn't been through something similar.
They shut down.
Yeah, it felt safer, less painful to just withdraw rather than keep facing that kind of misunderstanding or those clumsy comments.
Which is the absolute worst outcome, right? You end up more isolated just when you need connection the most.
Precisely. It's this horrible feedback loop. They ended up finding real comfort mostly only with others who got it, who had lived through similar losses. No explanations needed there.
Mm-hmm. And this all points to some pretty deep-seated cultural ideas about grief that are maybe, well, wrong.
Very much so. The author talks about how grief is often seen almost like an illness, a malady, she calls it.
Yeah.
Something messy that needs to be, cleaned up quickly, put away.
Right. Think about how often you hear things implying grief has a deadline. Shouldn't you be over it by now? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that idea of grief as a malady. It suggests it's like abnormal, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Something wrong that needs fixing with a set timeline for recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. We had these unspoken rules almost about how long it should take, what it should look like on the outside. Society kind of pushes you to get back to normal, whatever that means, as fast as possible.
And that pressure just fundamentally misses the point of what grief actually is. It gets framed like a problem to be solved, something to overcome.
Instead of something that needs tending to, supported, like, a really deep wound. It needs care, attention over time. It doesn't just vanish.
And it's fascinating you mentioned even professionals.
Well, yeah, it's literally. Often, even in mental health fields, the training can lean towards seeing grief through a sort of disorder lens, looking for symptoms to treat, rather than seeing it as this completely natural, albeit incredibly painful human response.
So, okay, if the experts themselves are sometimes working with that kind of limited view, well, no wonder the rest of us feel so awkward and, frankly, useless when someone we know is grieving.
It creates this huge gap, doesn't it, between what people actually need when they're grieving and what our culture and sometimes even the professions actually offer.
Yeah, the tools we have just aren't cutting it.
Exactly. The tools are inadequate. And these ingrained ideas about how grief should be can actually get in the way. They stop the grieving person from taking care of themselves properly, and they stop others from giving real helpful support.
Leading to more pain.
Right. It's what the author calls suffering on top of natural, normal pain. that extra layer that comes from feeling alone and misunderstood in your grief.
Okay, so this is where the author's work seems to pivot, offering a different way towards, she calls it rehumanizing grief.
Yes, exactly. Rehumanizing it, drawing on her own experience, but also from working with thousands, literally thousands of grieving people through her website. She's learned so much about what actually helps.
And what does that look like? Rehumanizing grief.
Well, a huge part of it is simply talking about it openly. Acknowledging grief, like she says, as a natural, normal process, not something shameful or weird that needs to be hidden or rushed.
So, not a problem to be solved.
Not a problem to solve. It's about recognizing it as this fundamental human thing, unique to each person, with its own path. Shifting the focus away from trying to fix the pain.
Which is often impossible anyway.
Totally impossible.
Right.
And shifting towards tending to the pain, being present with it, acknowledging the loss is real and often permanent, and then figuring out, okay, what skills do we actually need to navigate life now? These practical, real skills for living with the loss.
And the book itself aims to provide that.
That's the goal. In her words, it's about offering understanding, compassion, validation, and a way through the pain. Notice through, not over or past. It's about finding ways to integrate it, to carry it differently.
And it's crucial to remember, isn't it, that this isn't just for a niche group. Loss is universal.
Absolutely. The author really stresses this. Grief touches everyone. So this
that
deep
right?
dive, it's not only for you if you're grieving right now, it's for literally everyone, because we all face loss or will inevitably know and want to support someone who is.
The bigger aim then is cultural change, a shift in how we all handle this.
Yeah, basically. To build a culture that's genuinely more helpful, loving, supportive around grief. And that starts with really understanding what it is and what it isn't.
And underneath all that, she suggests, is this shared human longing.
To love better. That's the phrase she uses.
Yeah. To love ourselves better when we're in pain and to love each other better when life just feels unbearable. And the hope is that understanding grief better gives us the skills to actually do that.
It takes something to even lean into this topic, doesn't it? It's hard. And the author acknowledges that directly. She says, thank you for being here, for being willing to read, to listen, to learn.
That's powerful. It recognizes the effort involved.
It does. And she wraps up the introduction with this thought that really stuck with me. Together we can make things better, even when we can't make them right.
That sums it up perfectly. Not fixing the unfixable, but improving things through, well, understanding and compassion.
So if we boil down what we've talked about from this introduction, the real takeaway is that culturally, we often make grief harder than it needs to be. We mishandle it. And that leads to more isolation, more suffering.
Right, and that mishandling seems to come from this basic mistake. Seeing grief as, like, a temporary problem we need to fix quickly.
Instead of seeing it as this deeply personal, totally natural human response that needs time and space and just compassionate support. Presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important to remember grief isn't, neat or linear. There's no right way or right timeline. If you're grieving, the message seems to be kind to yourself, be patient.
Definitely. And for anyone supporting someone who's grieving, maybe the shift is away from trying to find the right words to fix it and more towards just being there, tending to the pain, like we said, rather than trying to solve it.
Okay, so here's something maybe to chew on after this conversation. Think about the last time you were around someone who was grieving. Knowing what we've discussed today, maybe thinking about the author's insights, what might you do differently next time? Or maybe say differently. How could you focus more on that idea of tending instead of automatically trying to fix?